heartfelt story featuring Keanu Reeves in a moment of kindness. Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant. It was a cold evening in New York City. Snowflakes swirled in the air, landing gently on the bustling streets. Inside a cozy little restaurant on the corner of Fifth Avenue, Keanu Reeves sat alone at a dimly lit table, enjoying a quiet dinner. Dressed in a simple black coat, he kept to himself, blending into the background as he often did. As he sipped his coffee, the front door creaked open. A young boy, no older than 10, stepped in hesitantly. His clothes were tattered, his face pale from the biting wind. He rubbed his hands together, his eyes darting to the plates of steaming food on nearby tables. The boy's stomach growled loudly. A few customers glanced at him, some with pity, others with indifference. A waiter approached. "Hey kid, you can't be in here unless you're ordering something," he said firmly. Before the boy could turn away, Keanu Reeves put down his cup and spoke. "Hold on," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "He's with me." The waiter hesitated, then nodded. Keanu motioned for the boy to come closer. The child hesitated, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Sit," Keanu said, pulling out a chair. "What's your name?" "Daniel," the boy mumbled, sitting cautiously. "Nice to meet you, Daniel. Are you hungry?" The boy nodded. Keanu signaled the waiter. "Bring him whatever he wants. And a hot chocolate too, please." The boy's eyes lit up. He ordered a burger, fries, and a big glass of hot chocolate. As they waited for the food, Keanu asked him about his life. Daniel told him about his struggles, how his mother had lost her job, how they'd been evicted, how she was trying to find work while he wandered the streets, looking for warmth. Keanu listened, never interrupting, never looking away. When the food arrived, Daniel ate quickly, savoring every bite. Keanu smiled but didn't rush him. When the meal was done, Keanu pulled out his wallet and handed Daniel something. Not just money, but a business card. "This is a shelter where you and your mom can stay. They'll help you get back on your feet," he said. "And if you ever need a friend, call this number. Okay?" Daniel clutched the card as if it were a golden ticket. His eyes welled up with tears. "Thank you, sir." Keanu patted his shoulder. "Take care, buddy." As Daniel left the restaurant, warmth returned to his small, fragile hands. Not from the food, not from the hot chocolate, but from the kindness of a stranger. One who, despite his fame, never forgot what it meant to be human. And outside, in the swirling snow, a boy walked home with hope in his heart. Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant, Part 2. Daniel clutched the card tightly as he stepped back into the cold night. The address on it wasn't far, but he hesitated. What if it was too good to be true? What if they turned him away like so many others had? But then he thought of Keanu's kind eyes, his warm voice. "If you ever need a friend, call this number." Taking a deep breath, Daniel started walking, a new beginning. The shelter was a small, welcoming place tucked between two tall buildings. The lights inside glowed softly, and a woman at the front desk smiled as he entered. "Hello there, sweetie," she greeted. "How can I help you?" Daniel nervously showed her the card Keanu had given him. Her eyes widened. "Oh, Mr. Reeves sent you?" She nodded, quickly making a call. Within minutes, Daniel was given a warm blanket, a hot meal, and, most importantly, a place to stay. That night, for the first time in weeks, he slept in a real bed. The scent of freshly washed sheets and the quiet hum of the heater made him feel safe. He whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," before drifting into a peaceful sleep. An unexpected surprise. The next morning, Daniel's mother arrived at the shelter. She had been searching for him all night. When she saw him safe, well-fed, and smiling, she broke down in tears. "I thought I lost you," she sobbed, hugging him tightly. "We're okay now, Mom," Daniel whispered. "A kind man helped us." Later that day, Keanu Reeves himself arrived at the shelter. He didn't come with cameras, no reporters, just him. When he saw Daniel and his mother, he smiled. "How are you guys doing?" he asked. Daniel grinned. "Better, much better." Keanu sat with them for a while, talking, laughing, making sure they had everything they needed. He even helped Daniel's mother get in touch with a local organization that provided job opportunities. Before he left, Keanu placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Life gets tough sometimes, but kindness makes it better. Never forget that, okay?" Daniel nodded. "I won't." And as Keanu walked away, disappearing into the city, Daniel knew this wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was the moment that changed his life forever. Would you like me to extend the story further, or add a different twist? Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant, Part 3. A promise to keep. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly began to change for Daniel and his mother. With Keanu's help, she found a job at a small bakery, and they moved into temporary housing provided by the shelter. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Daniel, too, was different now. The hunger and fear that had once filled his days were slowly being replaced by something else. Hope. One evening, as he sat outside the shelter watching the city lights, he pulled out the card Keanu had given him. He traced the letters with his fingers, thinking about the man who had saved him. "I want to be like him," he whispered to himself. An unexpected visit. One afternoon, as Daniel and his mother were getting groceries from a community center, a sleek black car pulled up outside. The door opened, and out stepped Keanu Reeves. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. "No way," Keanu smiled. "Hey, buddy." Daniel ran up to him, beaming. "You came back." "Of course, I wanted to check in on you guys." He looked over at Daniel's mother. "How's everything going?" She wiped a tear from her eye and nodded. "Because of you, we're getting back on our feet. I can't thank you enough." Keanu waved a hand. "You're the ones doing the hard work. I just gave a little push." They all sat on a nearby bench talking about life, dreams, and the future. Keanu listened intently as Daniel excitedly told him about his new school, how he was catching up on his studies, and how he had made a new friend. "You know," Keanu said, leaning in, "I have a friend who runs a martial arts gym. If you're interested, I could set you up with some lessons." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Really? Like in the movies?" Keanu chuckled. "Yeah, but with fewer explosions. A future full of possibilities." Over the next few months, Daniel trained at the gym Keanu had introduced him to. At first he struggled. His body wasn't strong, and he had never done anything like this before. But with patience and persistence, he improved. Keanu would visit whenever he could, watching Daniel train, encouraging him, and sometimes even sparring with him in a playful way. One day, after a tough session, Daniel wiped sweat from his brow and looked up at Keanu. "I get it now," he said, catching his breath. Keanu raised an eyebrow. "Get what?" "You told me kindness makes life better. It's not just about getting help, it's about becoming strong enough to help others too." Keanu grinned. "You're a smart kid, Daniel." Years later, Daniel grew into a strong, kind young man. He never forgot the night he met Keanu Reeves, the night everything changed. Inspired by the kindness he had received, he dedicated his life to helping others, just like Keanu had helped him. And somewhere in the city, under the same swirling snow, a boy who once had nothing walked forward, his heart full of hope, his future full of possibilities. The end. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you want any changes or a different ending. Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant, Part 4. A chance to give back. Years passed, and Daniel's life took a turn he never could have imagined. With Keanu's help and his own perseverance, he not only finished school, but also went on to study social work in college. He never forgot the kindness that had saved him, and he wanted to do the same for others. At the age of 22, Daniel returned to the very same shelter that had taken him in all those years ago, not as someone in need, but as a volunteer. He spent his days helping families find housing, guiding lost kids like himself, and reminding them that life could change, just like it had for him. One winter evening, as snowflakes danced in the air, he sat at the front desk of the shelter, sipping a cup of coffee. The door creaked open, and in walked a young boy, no older than 10. His clothes were worn, his face pale from the cold. Daniel's heart clenched. The boy hesitated, eyes darting around the room just as Daniel had done years ago. Daniel stood up, smiling warmly. "Hey, buddy," he said gently. "You hungry?" The boy nodded shyly. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small business card. It wasn't Keanu's card this time, it was his own. "Don't worry," Daniel said. "You're safe here. Let's get you something to eat." As the boy followed him to the kitchen, Daniel looked up at the ceiling, silently thanking Keanu Reeves, the man who had changed his life forever. Far away somewhere in the world, Keanu was likely filming another movie, making more people smile. But to Daniel, he wasn't just a movie star. He was proof that one act of kindness could create ripples that lasted a lifetime. And now, it was Daniel's turn to pass it on. The end. This brings the story full circle. What do you think? Would you like a different twist or continuation? Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant. Daniel spent years working at the shelter, helping children and families in need. His story became an inspiration. Many who walked through the doors found hope through his kindness. One day, as he was organizing supplies, the phone at the front desk rang. A familiar voice greeted him on the other end. "Hey, Daniel," the voice said warmly. Daniel froze. He hadn't heard that voice in years, but he could never forget it. "Mr. Reeves?" he asked in disbelief. Keanu chuckled. "Just Keanu, remember. I heard about the work you're doing at the shelter. I'm proud of you, kid." Daniel's heart swelled with emotion. "I wouldn't be here without you." Keanu paused. "Listen, I was wondering if you'd like to meet up. I have something I want to talk to you about." An unexpected offer. A week later, Daniel found himself sitting across from Keanu Reeves at the very same restaurant where their journey had begun. It felt surreal. The dim lights, the cozy atmosphere, the quiet hum of conversations around them. "You've come a long way," Keanu said, sipping his coffee. "But I think you can do even more." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Keanu leaned forward. "I want to help you start your own foundation, one that helps homeless kids and struggling families. You know better than anyone what they need, and I want to support you in making a real difference." Daniel's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Keanu nodded. 100%. You've got the heart, the experience, and the drive. I'll provide the funding and connections, but this will be your mission." Daniel felt overwhelmed. Just a few years ago, he was a lost boy wandering the streets hoping for a miracle. Now he was being given a chance to be the miracle for others. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I want to do this." Keanu grinned. "I knew you would." Hope for the future. With Keanu's support, Daniel founded the Hope Rising Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping homeless youth find shelter, education, and opportunities for a better future. Over the years, it grew into a nationwide movement, changing thousands of lives. At the grand opening of their first permanent shelter, Daniel stood before a crowd, taking a deep breath. He spotted Keanu in the front row, smiling proudly. "Years ago," Daniel began, his voice steady, "I was just a kid on the streets, cold and hungry with nowhere to go. But one person's kindness changed everything. That kindness didn't just save me, it gave me the strength to help others." He looked over at Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, Keanu, you taught me that the smallest act of compassion can create waves of change. Today, I promise to keep that kindness alive, for every child out there who needs hope." The audience erupted into applause, but for Daniel, the most meaningful moment came when Keanu walked up and pulled him into a proud hug. "You did this, kid," Keanu whispered, "and the world is better for it." As Daniel stood on that stage, surrounded by people whose lives were about to change, he realized something. This wasn't just the end of his journey, it was only the beginning. The end, or rather, the start of something greater. This completes the full transformation of Daniel's journey. Do you want any extra scenes, or maybe an epilogue where he helps someone special? What heck, Keanu Reeves gives help to a homeless boy in a restaurant. Part 6, Epilogue. A life-changing encounter. Years passed and the Hope Rising Foundation became one of the most respected organizations for helping homeless youth. Daniel dedicated his life to the mission, traveling across the country, meeting kids with stories just like his, and ensuring they had the support they needed. One cold winter evening, Daniel was visiting one of the shelters in Los Angeles when a staff member rushed up to him. "Daniel, there's a kid outside. He won't come in, but I think he needs help," she said. Daniel nodded and stepped outside. The chilly night air bit at his skin as he spotted a young boy, no older than 11, sitting on the curb, hugging his knees. His clothes were ragged, and his face was a mask of exhaustion. Daniel's heart clenched. It was like looking at his younger self. He crouched down beside the boy. "Hey, buddy, it's pretty cold out here. Why don't you come inside?" The boy looked up, his eyes wary. I don't want to be a problem." Daniel smiled softly. "You're not a problem. I used to be just like you, you know. Lost, hungry, and thinking no one cared. But I promise you there are people who do." The boy hesitated, then asked, "Did someone help you?" Daniel's smile deepened. Yeah, a kind man named Keanu Reeves gave me a meal and a chance when I needed it most. Now I'm here to do the same for you." The boy's eyes widened. Keanu Reeves. Like the actor? Daniel chuckled. "Yeah, just like the actor, but to me, he was much more than that. He was my first real friend." The boy looked down at his hands, thinking. Then slowly he reached out and took Daniel's hand. "Okay," he whispered. Daniel helped him up and led him inside, where a warm meal and a safe bed awaited. As they walked through the shelter's doors, he glanced up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Keanu Reeves was living his life, continuing to inspire people in his own way. He probably had no idea how far his one act of kindness had reached. But Daniel knew. And now it was his turn to pass it on, again and again, for as long as he lived. Because kindness never ends. It just keeps growing. The end. This epilogue brings everything full circle. Do you like how it ended, or would you like another twist?